Bearcat Bounce podcast. Back at it again. And happy March. Happy March. Happy Monday. First Monday of March. I do love March. I've always loved March. March madness. March sadness. But it's Monday and it's March. It's Monday following another split for the basketball program. A split that was an exciting split, though. One having a fantastic basketball win on my birthday, if you will. And then another having a tough road loss against a team that we have become all too accustomed to struggling against. But it's a Monday where I am happy, I am joyous, and I am excited to talk to my pals, talk to my crew, talk to the squad. So without further ado, Aaron Smith, Chad Brendel, and maybe Ryan Royer. Gentlemen, how are we?
I think he's ducking me. He knows I'm mad at him.
Ducking that smoke?
He is.
Yeah, ducking that smoke. Tulsa, 2020.
Doing good. Had some radio today, so, made some radio magic. Raced home, got some stuff done. Ready to bring another excellent BBP to the people.
Boom.
Except Ryan. I'm mad at Ryan.
Okay.
What the hell, Chad? You're acting like I'm late or something.
Oh, no, I'm not mad at you for that.
What are you mad at me for?
That we don't have Brian Cook on this show.
Man, you guys overestimate my pulse sometimes. I will say that.
You were in the same place at the same time. You just had to get over and talk to him, Royer.
How was I going to get on the court, man? I ain't got those credentials.
You had third row seats and a wristband. You could have got over there.
No wristband.
That's my teammate. That's my teammate.
I don't know how we overestimate your pool when there's been no pool.
Yeah, you had no pool. We perfectly. Your pool is properly estimated.
The pole went out the window, and I put the sock on my genitals. That's when everyone was like, "All right, he's too weird. We're not gonna go on his podcast." Well, we don't know what he's gonna do on there. We can't trust him.
What's true is that Sauce that was a big stream, right?
What'd you say?
When Sauce brought that up, that was a big stream that you had your voice quoted out there.
Yeah, it's not only the stream, is what it is it like recirculates on TikTok, and like it'll just randomly like blow up like a new clip of it, and then you get all like the high schoolers and middle schoolers like spamming my DMs and my Instagram pictures with comments and follow requests.
Is this real?
Yeah.
We haven't heard about this
2 weeks ago, and it's just I get attacked by all the Aiden Ross fans out there. So
wait, it blew up again?
Yeah, it did. I get tagged in it, and it's just then I just start getting message requests, comments on my Instagram.
You're kind of like blowing up without us knowing. You're becoming super popular on the TikTok stream. Chad, I think this is the new avenue for revenue right here. Little Royer on TikTok. Use this Aiden Ross Sauce Gardner connect, and let's blow up the Bearcat Journal TikTok.
We got to do something around here. Like, you got a Super Bowl champion in the building that spent all that time with Royer in the locker room. Can't even get him on the show. Like, I'm not mad, Ryan. Before?
I know.
No, I've asked you a couple times to try to get him on. You're like, I'll see what I can do.
I got to do something, man. I gotta carry my weight here.
I'm not mad. Okay.
You're just disappointed. Yeah, I knew that was going.
Sorry, Dad. Well, but Chad, other than that, how are we? How was the weekend?
Weekend was pretty good. I mean, successful watch party. A lot of Bearcat fans at the Grail on Saturday. So that went well. And then kind of took a relaxing day for the most part yesterday, and then back to the grind today. Tomorrow we've got a little Wes Miller press conference at 1:15 in advance of senior day. Got got some radio tomorrow, and then obviously the big Kansas State game on Wednesday. So a lot going on, and then we are 1 week from the start of spring football.
Let's go, baby.
That's a lot. That's exciting, Royer. It's exciting.
I know. It's back.
Thank you for the vibes there, Chad. And also, Chad, we are 1 week, 2 weeks away from coming on the show on a Monday following Selection Sunday, where we discuss where the Bearcats are heading for their first round matchup in the battle for the crown, or maybe the NCAA tournament. We'll touch on all that here soon. Aaron, how are we, man? How was the weekend?
The quiet before the storm. We're in between sports right now, so we don't have too much going on weekends, which is good. But baseball is right around the corner, so we'll be busy with 2 kids' baseball schedules in the not so distant future. So we're just enjoying it while we can. We had a nice little trip to Costco, which is an hour and a half each way for us, because there's nothing close to here. We have to migrate up to Columbus to Easton to do that for the nearest Costco.
You said hour and a half one way, hour and a half back?
Yeah, it's a long. You have to cut out a day for it.
What did you buy? Because you are notorious for not wanting to even take a case of Cincy Light home because you're afraid that it might go skunk.
Well, see, we ended up buying a cooler that is the size of our trunk, so we're able to do some things with that.
How many samples did you partake in? Oh boy,
I didn't have any that day.
What?
Actually, I take that back. There was some cheese. I don't know. One of the kids didn't want it,
okay.
So I ended up having to eat the cheese. But
okay. Tell you what, sometimes I just go and just hammer samples and leave.
No one's surprised by that.
It's the best thing on earth. Royer, how are we? The boy.
Doing great. I went down to watch the Stadium Series game in Columbus. That was epic.
Oh, yeah.
So wasn't able to watch the Bearcats game, sadly, but had to go follow my love for the Columbus Blue Jackets in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So that was fun. Cold as shit, though. I will say that. I wish I was back on the sidelines at one of those Temple games where they used to blow the hot ass air on us and we looked like the little penguins all gathered up around it. But it was a good weekend other than, I was trying to keep track of the score on my phone. I guess I wouldn't use the word disappointed because I wasn't expecting a win, but I was like, all right, it's looking like how I thought it would. And hold on now, doing a little something. But it was still a good weekend. Cats put up a good fight. So yeah. Hopefully there's some magic left in the tank for them.
Yeah.
Need some help from other teams.
I think so. But I think that they're in a better spot than a lot of people think, but still, yeah. Outside looking in for now. So we'll see what the rest of the season holds as here at the Cincy Light Studios with Mr. Chad Brendel. If you are excited to maybe drive to KC to cheer on the Bearcats in the Big 12 tournament as you try and oomph them to a couple more victories, or maybe after a victory on Wednesday, you want to go down to Stillwater, be that one fan that could push them across the line to get back-to-back wins to close out the regular season. Should head over to Danco Transition Auto Care first. Make sure you get your car checked. Make sure you get the what's nots and the what's is going in and out. You get $10 off your next oil change, 10% off the next fixing. Mention Ryan Royer. Mention the Stadium Series at the Ohio State University. Mention Aaron Smith. Mention Chad Brendel. Mention Costco. See what happens. Danco Joe will hook you up, and he will make it happen. Danco Transmission and Auto Care. We love you. But, guys, it happened again. Ryan, because you weren't there or you weren't able to watch, I will ask your thoughts on the exciting Baylor performance first. I know it was a while ago, but it was happiness. You had a third row seat. So I want to just see what it was like to take in everything from an eye view of exactly probably one of the grittier wins down the stretch, one of the greater DayDay Thomas fights, one of the better chase down blocks by Dylan Mitchell. We forget how long ago this was. A tip out on a rebound off a missed free throw by Aziz Vandago. You know, a lot of good things happened on Tuesday night, and it was a victory. So, how was it taking in that game from that court line? And then Chad and Aaron will continue to talk about the sad part of the week.
I mean, it was great. Chad, the name of the man that I
Steve Boymel.
Yeah. Big shout out to Steve. He made sure that I wasn't trying to steal his grandson's seat with me and my girlfriend, which was hilarious. And then later in the game too, like young kids came in and tried to steal the seats and that his grandkids were sitting in. And Steve's got some fire to him. He's passionate about his seats, and he should be, because they're amazing. It was awesome. It was probably the coolest watch experience I've had out of any basketball game, and especially the result too. It was a great game. I mean, every bit of, like, you never felt safe once it was like 13 and then they make a couple threes and it's at 8 and you're like, you just knew Baylor was creeping back in because they're a well-coached team, even though they're having a kind of down year. Mm-hmm. But, you know, just having the guy like Seamoss come off the bench, we didn't know who he was going to play, hit a couple big threes. Jizzle kind of remaining his steady scoring, mid-range jumper. I know that we talk about not being the most inefficient, but it was crucial at some points. A big threes from him too at the end of the game. Dylan Mitchell, like you said, really played well that game. I thought he was the difference maker for us. You know, just so dynamic, offense and defense, big buckets. But yeah, it was awesome. It was such a good win against another tournament team, you know, kind of showing that we do belong, even though we haven't done a great job with our resume, that we are good enough to be in this. It's just, you know, we kind of slipped up a little too much earlier, but, you know, Fifth Third was electric. It was such a great experience. It was a great win, a great resume builder, and hopefully, you know, it's worth something here in the next couple of weeks. But loved how the team played. Best fight, best grit of the year, I'd say.
Yeah, it was it's an awesome game. I mean, that place looked electric. Obviously from the third row and from Chad, where media sits, sure that place was rocking. And one can only hope that the same thing happens on Wednesday to try and will them to a win. But the game that happened in between, let's go ahead and dive into it. 73-64 loss at Houston, a game where the Bearcats were up 10-2 at one point, but the loss comes at the hands now 12 in a row that the Bearcats have fallen to Houston. How about this pretty crazy stat I saw on Twitter? Cincinnati won 27 of the first 28 games in the series between Houston and the Bearcats. It started in 1957. Houston didn't get its second win until 2016. Now Houston has won the 12 in a row. Chad, Aaron, you guys obviously had the aftermath, but a couple of days pass, and I mean, you hold Houston to a pretty poor shooting percentage from beyond the arc. You win the rebounding battle. You had a 10-2 lead, and then obviously the lead ballooned out to 19 for them. But it's a weird game. But looking back on it, it's a game where the metrics fired up for the Bearcats, even in the loss following the next couple of days, and now here we are trying to put the pieces back together in what was yet again another tough one against Kelvin Sampson and the Cougars.
Yeah, it was just a game where you're just left irritated and angry because you start out 10-2 and you give up the rare 35-12 run. That started largely because of Dan Skilling's 3 straight turnovers. Mm-hmm. And he did not really do anything to redeem himself after those 3 straight turnovers. You didn't have much of a game from your bench. You didn't have much of a game from offensively anyway, from 3 of your starters. And when it's pretty much just Jizzle and DayDay, and DayDay can't stay in the game because the refs can't figure out what the fuck a foul is and what isn't, it's just a mess. Recipe for disaster, if you will.
Yeah. Chad, Houston is probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. Auburn right there. Obviously.
Well, Auburn's the best team in the country, full stop.
Right. Yeah. But
Duke is very close. Houston, I would say, right there with Florida for like 3rd and 4th. I'd say those two are battling.
Crazy Crazy that Auburn started this season, though, turning a plane around.
Yeah. And also
I will
trailing
turn this-
17.
You guys, I will turn this plane around right now.
They did.
And they did. And they took those two dudes back and they dropped them off. Think about it.
They were trailing Iowa State by 17 at one point as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just a crazy beginning of the season. But yeah, the thing about Duke that I find interesting, and obviously this will be a talk for a different time, but I mean, they played trash. The ACC is trash. You can't tell me anything otherwise outside of them and Clemson. The whole rest of the league is very bad. So I don't know if that kind of is a Gonzaga feel to it in the WCC when they have decent years, and all of a sudden maybe St. Mary's gives them a battle every once in a while. But yeah, Houston is just a juggernaut. And Chad, you tweeted it at halftime, and I kind of voiced it as well. As you know, when they play that physical of a defense, and even physically offensive is how they play as well. And the foul differential was 9-2 at that halftime stint. You kind of see a different level of Houston where they become almost immortal, and that's what we were taking in that first half.
Yeah, I mean, that's thanks, Ron. What's up, brother? That's kind of like I talked about this a little bit on the aftermath. Like you figure out early in a game how a game is going to be called, how the officials are going to allow the game to be played. And when one team, the team that's more naturally aggressive in the way that they play, gets a sense that we're allowed to just bump and chuck and hold and push, they feed on that. And then the other team, every time they get in the general vicinity of somebody, it's going to be a foul. Well, then they're going to back off a little bit, and they're not going to be as aggressive, which I think you saw in the second half with how, the way Houston was able to get into the lane and get those looks from like 6, 8, 10 feet. DayDay Thomas and Dylan Mitchell were either not in the game or they were afraid because of foul trouble to be all that physical. So it sets the tone for a game. That's the part that Aaron and I talk about this all the time. If you're going to let them be physical, cool. Let both sides be physical. Don't call anything. Teams can adjust to that and play to that fashion. If you're going to call it tight, call it tight. But don't have it one way here and another way there, because that sends messages to each team that one knows they're going to be able to be overly physical. And then the funny thing was, of course, after the damage was done, it flipped at halftime. And then Houston got called for a bunch of ticky-tack stuff, and Cincinnati didn't really get called for anything. If there was just even, I would have been interested to see what that game would have looked like. Do I think? Y'all said no, Cook. Guess I'm out. See, Ryan, we're losing viewers because of you.
Hey, pull the thumb. Pulling the thumb right here.
But that's just the frustrating part. Is like let it be played. Let the message to both teams be the same. You can be physical or you can't be physical. Not one can and the other can't. Like that's, and then the two goaltending calls at a time when Houston was building momentum were huge. Yeah. Huge. I mean, I think at one point, like it was 24-15. And if you take away the 2 points that Houston got on what wasn't a goaltend by Aziz, it's a clean block, they go to 23. Cincinnati goes up to 17 or 19, whatever it was. You've got like a 4 or a 6 point game at that point instead of 8-10. And it just, the problem, look, they didn't play well enough. But with Houston, like you need them to not play as well, which I thought they played pretty well. I'm sure Kelvin was upset in the second half. They weren't at the top of their game. But you're not going to make up 13 points on Houston in their gym. You have no chance to outplay them by 13 points in their gym. Like, in 20 minutes. It's not going to happen. The only time they've lost, that Cincinnati was their second closest home game. The only other one that was better was Texas Tech going in there and winning in overtime. Nobody else has come close to them. So you've got to be almost perfect to go into that gym and beat them. Cincinnati wasn't. The turnovers, especially 6 from Dan and Seamas in the first half, that, Houston had 15 points at halftime, 14 points at halftime off turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them came off of those 6 because they only turned it over 9 times in the first half. And then 3 times in the second half? So if Dan and Seamas don't lose their mind for 6 minutes, maybe that thing doesn't get out of hand the way it did in the first half. Those guys have to be better. You've already lost your starting job, fellas. Right. You can't come in off the bench, turn it over 6 times, and allow them to get double-digit points when you got put into the game. I just don't understand those two falling off to the level that they've fallen off.
It's mind-boggling. Especially because their turnovers, 3 of them resulted in fast break layups.
Yeah, and throwing it to the other team.
Yeah, and then you add in the one with Tyler Betsy for another breakaway layup, and you just immediately give them 8-10 points that are just extremely easy instead of making them work and trying to get them like that. We're going to talk a little bit more about kind of just Dan and Seamas and them as after we get off the Houston topic. But the fact of the matter is Houston they're 20-1 over their last 21 games. They started 4-3 to begin the year. You mentioned their one loss was that home loss to Texas Tech. Texas Tech looks like a damn good basketball team right now. This is the team where coming into this game, you are asking a crazy circumstance to happen. And this is a Houston team as well that, they only shot 21% from 3 in the game, but you look at it, they shot, 64.3% from 2, which was the most, the highest percentage that Cincinnati's given up from 2 all season. And a lot of those shots were just ones that you would kind of take, ones that you think, okay, there were the Jizzle / DayDay mid-range jumpers, pull up that kind of rattled in for them, and all of a sudden they're hitting every floater, they're hitting every runner. This is an offensive Houston team as well that it just seemed as if every chance that Cincinnati had to try and pull even closer, it was Houston coming up with a response that you kind of did not see coming. Especially you see Juwan Roberts at not only finished with 8 points, but in the second half, numerous times when Cincinnati tried to bring it close. Well, I take that back. When DayDay Thomas tried to bring it close, it was him taking his man, getting to the rim, laying it in, and pushing the lead back out. You look back at that Cryer 3 at the end of the shot clock. Just numerous different occurrences where it looked like it was close for Cincinnati to try and break through and get back within 9 there in the second half, and they just could not get over the hump. Let's talk about DayDay Thomas real fast. It seems as though the season kind of took that turn, or at least the conference season took that turn after he was inserted into the starting lineup. DayDay in those 9 games since being inserted in the starting lineup is averaging 13.5 points per game. Around 3.5 assists, two little under 3 rebounds per game. Bearcats are 5-4 in those contests. I guess what do you attest to the length of time that it took to decide to insert DayDay into the starting lineup? Was it kind of you want to see how things work and you want to have that idea of bringing that second point guard off the bench? It kind of feels like DayDay is a catalyst for the flip of what was January into what now has been the last 8 games.
I think it's a layered question. I mean, you had, I think we all had the same confidence that Dan was going to turn this thing around at some point in time. And he has simply not been able to turn any type of corner. Instead, he seemed to have wrecked into a brick wall. But so you have that going. against you. And you also, kind of to your point, you were starting Jizzle and you have DayDay. You're giving them both about that 20, 25-minute range. But you also have to be wary of the fact that we found out that this team is trying to keep their legs under them for March. And so do you really want to be running your 2 point guards out there, running the risk of injury, giving them both closer to, 28, 30 minutes? I think that those were all questions that weren't answered until you finally did it. And unfortunately, it was too little too late. But again, I think it all goes back to this is on Dan.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
no other way to put it, Aaron. It's on Dan. Like that, you can't go out there and look like you've never played basketball before.
Yeah.
And at times it looks like he's never played competitive basketball before. He didn't look like this last year.
No.
Like he would do this every first possession, he would turn it over.
Yeah.
But he didn't,
and then
he didn't ever play like this. Right.
He was honorable mention all conference last year. And now you can barely put him on the floor.
Yeah. You had Hall of Fame coaches saying we don't have a Dan Skillings on this roster in post-game press conferences. The Dan Skillings turn has been almost as crazy as the Josh Reed storyline this past couple of weeks.
I joked on the aftermath that I was rooting for him to get a flagrant 2 instead of a flagrant 1.
I heard that. See, the crazy thing is, and I went back and I watched it again, and you want to say, yes, the offense obviously hasn't been there. He went 18, 18, 18 in the first 3 Big 12 games. Ever since then, he's averaging.
I want to get to that too. I want to get to that in a little bit too.
He's averaging under 7 points per game. He's averaging a little under 3.5 rebounds per game. His minutes have gone down every single game throughout then. And it just the one thing that you saw when he came back against Xavier early in the season, when he came back from the injury, is that his defense was actually pretty solid on Conwell until the end of the game. And when Conwell kind of just went off and made some really, really tough shots. But now you're just seeing he's not even there defensively. A lot of them are blow-bys. He might have a couple of solid possessions. It just this last game was very, very rough for him. And his shot looks different. His from 3, it looks like he has 2 different 3-point shots as well. The whole thing is just so confusing. And when you talked about having this, this alpha, and you were thinking maybe it is Dan, that turns out really not being the case. He's shooting under, he's in the game since he scored those 3 straight 18 points. He is shooting under 28% from threes. He's 27.8% from 3. He's shooting 40% from the field. He's missed 60 shots from the field. And he's supposed to be one of the better rebounders, so it's tough to get a rebound off those shots as well. His free throw shooting is he's at 54.5%. This is the guy that led the team in scoring last year. He in a game where you desperately needed something, you needed everyone to be clicking on all cylinders to beat Houston at Houston. Dan was arguably at his worst. And Chad, I'm interested to hear your thoughts after the 18-18-18 to begin conference play.
That's why the leash is was longer than people wanted it to be, right? Mm-hmm. Because he did show at the beginning of conference play that it was in there.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, after that 3rd game, it just vanished. And he wasn't great. There were signs in those first 3 games. But if he's putting up 18 points or 14 points or 12 points, some of that stuff you can live with a little bit.
Yeah. Also attribute some of that to rust, right? You just coming back from injury, you think maybe it's just rust.
Right. And, you're going to allow a guy like that has, again, honorable mention all Big 12 last year for how good he was in Big 12 play. And then he opens up 18-18-18. It's easy to sit from home and say, bench that guy. Never want to see him again. But when you're coaching the team, you're like, it's I know it's there. Like I have counted on him to do this, and he has done it. It's not a hypothetical. It's not a, we're waiting for this guy to finally show he can do it. It's what the hell happened? Where did it go? What do we got to do to like get it back? And you're working and working and working to get it back. And then at some point you finally have to just say, okay, like, but I think people look at it as like those first 10 games, Dan was bad for all of those 10 games. He wasn't. The first 3, he was a positive player. Like he gave you in games where they were struggling offensively, he was giving you some life. Yep. And it just wiped out. Like it just completely went away. And it's hard to imagine. I've never seen anything like it where a guy just loses all of his ability.
Yeah, I don't understand it, and it's not only just losing the ability. It's he at a certain point, it just the whole fan base said, well, he used to be this hustle guy. He used to be this, doing all these things that we had been used to seeing great Bearcats do, and all of a sudden those went to the wayside as well. He wasn't going after the loose balls hard. He wasn't going hard after rebounds. And we said, maybe is it the knee still lagging? Maybe is it this? Maybe is it that? And the all of the different excuses or avenues for excuses just finally went to the wayside, and they're like, all right, let's throw DayDay in there because he's the one that's putting in this effort. He's the one that's scrapping for loose balls. And if you look back at it, DayDay Thomas he's taken somewhat of a star turn. Obviously, Jizzle James is the star on this team. He will fill up the stat sheet and scoring no matter how long it takes. He will do that. But DayDay has been just about as good with his ability on both ends of the court. Obviously, going back to this Houston game, he cannot get that third foul the way he did in the first half. He was the one player we had going offensively with confidence, and for him to just barrel into a Houston player on the glass, it's a tough foul. But yeah, his second foul was, I didn't see anything. His fourth foul yet again. It's just what are we doing here? So, 19 minutes played by DayDay Thomas, and 19 points scored by DayDay Thomas. Is the lowest minute total since the non-conference, since December 22nd. And it really showed in this one. People talking about the Kelvin Sampson handshake line and him just, telling DayDay, oh, man, you were great out there. But I just think it was more so just, hey, got to give credit where credit's due. And DayDay was on fire.
I think he looked at him and said, do you ever just say to yourself, Jizzle? I love that name, Jizzle.
Hell yeah. Well, or Drizzle if you're Brad Nessler.
Man, Drizzle James.
There's Drizzle. But yeah, you just keep looking back at it, and it does boil down to Dan and CMOS. And what if it was just Jizzle and DayDay the whole time? But even so, Jizzle went through that really tough stretch as well.
He wasn't any good in January. Let's not pretend like he missed a ton of shots.
He did.
A ton. Shots that he normally makes. Like he was bad in January.
Yes. 0 for 11 against Xavier as well. You've got a 2 for 11 at Baylor, a 1 for 6 against Kansas, 1 for 7 at Colorado, 0 for 8 at home versus West Virginia, in the worst game ever. And then since then, he's averaging 19.5 points per game. He's getting 28 and a half minutes per game, shooting 38.3% from three. I mean, just a completely flip of a switch type of a player. And obviously he's going to need to be the guy that carries the team the rest of the way. I don't know. What would you say is the one thing? Obviously Houston is Houston. If when you saw that 15.5 point spread pop open and the plus crazy amount of money on the money line, you knew for a fact it was going to be a once in a lifetime shot to take home arguably the biggest win of the season and in the entire country. And obviously that didn't happen, but the hope is not lost. You got to win these next two games. what is it as we sit here 2 days before Wednesday, Kansas State coming into town? Is it just keep doing what you're doing? Because right now, since right after that West Virginia game, Cincinnati on Bartorvik, if you sort the data over those last 8 games, sort the data in the entire country, Bartorvik has them as the 21st best team in the country. 21. 16th offense in the country. 16th most efficient offense in all of college basketball. And they have played all Big 12 teams in those 8 games. Is it just continue what you've been doing up to this point?
Including Baylor, including
Iowa State,
BYU, including Iowa State, including Houston. Like, it's not a small sample size. They got back to who they were early in the season. For whatever reason, like, it just cratered in January.
They pushed pace too. They've certainly pushed pace since
their numbers are very similar, Aaron. They have not really been that much differently in pace than they have.
I just think when DayDay's out there, you feel like they push pace.
I was going to say visually it looks different. I guess their whole half court looks different because it doesn't seem like they're waiting to set up the half court. They're just
because you aren't passing the ball to Dan and sitting back and waiting for him to do something.
They're also not taking 12 seconds trying to run a play for CMOS over and over and over and over again. Yeah. That's probably what you notice more than anything, Aaron, because a lot of times, like when you're doing that, when you're trying to run a play to get a guy open, it looks like there's a lot of standing because one guy is moving and everybody else is screening and you're doing everything you can to get that guy open. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look because the ball's not moving. They're like, that's more than anything. The ball is moving more because they're not standing around waiting for a set play to get an action that worked last year and just didn't work this year. Yeah. Teams covered it. Teams had it scouted. They were putting a guy over the top. He was not able to curl, come around, catch. I mean, he still hasn't been able to do that hardly at all. You'll see maybe once or twice a game he'll get free, but every other time, as soon as he catches it, there's somebody right up in his airspace making sure that he can't get a clean look off. So I think that, I mean, their pace really isn't that different, Aaron, but the way they're running offense is more aesthetically pleasing. So it looks like there's more pace to it. Even though it's generally about the same.
The ball's popping better. I mean, we've seen that.
Yeah, because they're not waiting for one thing to happen. They're not, they're not relying
shots
on
off before the end of the shot clock. I mean, it's everything top to bottom offensively has looked night and day since that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, they're shooting 37.4% from 3 over those last 8 games. They're right at 70% from the free throw line, which it doesn't sound very good, but if you're a fan of Cincinnati, hey, I'll take 70% from the free throw line. They're getting assists on almost half of their makes. Another thing, Chad, when you mentioned trying to set up that offense to get CMOS an open look, well, if you remember, that was when Jizzle or DayDay, the whole fan base was like, well, why do we walk the ball off the court? Well, you cross over that half court line with 22 seconds left on the shot clock. Then you try and get some motion going for CMOS. Pass isn't available. Now all of a sudden you got 7 seconds left on the shot clock. And that's when we were seeing those fired up threes that just were clanking. And I don't know. It just sucks that it took this long to figure out the correct rotation and everything of that sort to come up with a positive offensive feel on the floor. But hey, there's 2 games left. There's Kansas State and there's at Oklahoma State. You win those 2 games, that I think it's crazy to keep mentioning this, but the first 4 out, the next 4 out, and the whole entire NCAA tournament bubble talk on Bracket Matrix. This is a website where people submit their brackets to try and become the best of bracketeers.
Breast bracketeers.
Yes, we can say that as well. Shouts to all the women out there. Love you. But we're trying to get the best bracket that you could. Literally, you're trying to somehow create a career off of filling out a bracket before it is revealed. Cincinnati right now sits there, first 4 out. of the brackets that were updated today, Cincinnati is on 10 first 4 outs. They are on 17 next 4 outs, and only on 9 of those brackets are they not in the first 4 out or next 4 out. And then guess what? They are actually in the field in one of the brackets. The net went up to 40. And 40 is one of the higher nets in the entire bubble. Quad 1 obviously is rough. Quad 2 is Casey. He's right here. He's back. Quad 2, they're one of the best Quad 2 teams in the entire country. And now they've got 2 opportunities to only add to the resume in games where they should win. So what is it, Chad, Aaron, Ryan, that you want to see in these final 2 games outside of just win the damn games in order to get over the hump? Is it? I agree. Just win the damn games. But analytically, a little bit furtherly, Kansas State, we'll start with them. Probably no Coleman Hawkins, but what is it that needs to be done?
I think you got to win both games by 15 or more. Just really solidify your.
That's not happening.
I know. I'm not making any promises. I'm saying if you really want to do all you can, be as convincing as possible that this is a new team that, you know, strung together a lot of good wins, is playing good basketball against tournament teams, and, you know, playing Houston well on the road, one of the best teams in the country. You got to really solidify that you are a resurged team, you know, turned a new leaf, and you're a dominant team that deserves to be in. So you got to win convincingly. And you're going to need some help, but that's outside of our control.
Aaron?
I want to see, personally, I just want to see this new starting 5. I don't give a shit about anything else. Just give me this new starting 5. Let them play 38. Let everybody else play the remaining, 10 minutes. I don't even care. Run these guys until the wheels fall off, because you're not getting anything from your bench. You're not getting anything from, unfortunately, as the season's progressed, you haven't seen a ton from Tyler Betsy. Dan is on a milk carton at this point. He's been on a milk carton. Simas has joined him. I'm not sure how they both ended up there, but that's where we're at. Arlington Page has been, he's shown a couple flashes throughout the entirety of the season, and that's just not going to cut it. And then CJ Frederick's been injured. Ray, I don't know why. I don't understand what's happened there. It just is what it is. So give me 38 minutes out of everybody, barring foul trouble, and ride with it. That's what I want to see.
Okay.
Aaron wants to see him get exhausted by the final 4 timeout and lose with 30 seconds on the clock because everybody played 38 minutes.
That's fine. You did this to yourselves.
They did. No, they did. Like you can't have a 2-8 stretch in conference. Like they can't. Like that's what it goes back to, because if they win these 2 games, they're going to be 7-3 in the second half of conference schedule. If they get 4 wins, if they go 4-6, like they're comfortably in the NCAA tournament. Like they
easily. Yeah.
They you just can't do what they did in January and recover from it in a league like this, because it requires, now you're going to have to win at Iowa State, or you're going to have to win at Houston. And those are 2 games that we saw. The team played reasonably well in both of those games.
Yeah.
And they lost both of those games, because you can play reasonably well against a top 10 team on the road and lose.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hole that you dug yourself. You can't lose both West Virginia games. You can't lose at Kansas State when they were playing like they were at that point in time.
At Utah.
Yeah, but look, man, everybody has.
Yeah, no, I agree, but just the way that game went, though.
Yeah,
it just they had 17 turnovers in the second half. Sure. My God.
But I'm just saying, if you look, everybody has struggled on that, right? That 2-game trip to Utah. Right. It's not gone well. I think one team has swept that trip.
Yeah.
So you know, I just look at it and say you did this to yourself, and you're trying everything you can to claw your way out of it, but like there's got to be lessons learned. Like you have got to be able to take this and learn from it as you're moving forward as a program, because this is the type of thing that dooms you when you're playing in a league this good. It's not the American where you can rip off 6, 7, 8, 9 wins in a row. It's not the Big East where you can just win 5, 7 games in a row and, you know, it doesn't look that difficult. Like this is a conference where you're going to have littered top 10 teams and top 25 teams. You know, they beat BYU. They beat Baylor at home. Like those are top 30 quad 1 level teams.
Yeah.
So you did that, but that's not enough. You have to do more. You can't let games slip through your fingers that you have there for the taking. You can't come out and lay a complete egg against West Virginia at home. Like that one's going to burn them for a long time.
And that was
letting the game at West Virginia just slide out of your hands. Like we're probably talking about a team that's in the last 4 in and fighting to hold on over these next 2 games if they win the West Virginia game.
True.
There's just too many instances. Like take out Houston and Iowa State, because those just nobody goes into those places and wins.
Right.
Like Wes's record against quad 1A teams is bad because he's got to go on the road and beat Houston and Iowa State, and nobody does that. Well, he needs to figure out a way. No, he needs to figure out a way to make sure they're better in those games against, and they've been good in quad 2 games. But, you know, they had a couple slip-ups in those quad 2 games that are costing them now that we are heading into the final week of the regular season. And the problem I see is I just don't know, even if they win these 2 games and they win a game or 2 in Kansas City, like, I don't know that it's enough to jump the teams ahead of you.
I see that's where Aaron's equation comes in, where you need a little bit of help from others. And luckily, there's a lot of games like Indiana plays Ohio State, Nebraska plays Ohio State. Obviously, all the SEC teams play each other. But we all need to be big South Carolina fans, because they can play spoiler. Which, by the way, how can you let Arkansas even be on the bubble after what they did on Saturday? But I know they are right there. They had a lot of good wins outside of those. But golly, 14 points in the first half against a South Carolina team that is just dreadful. Whatever. It is what it is. But the fact is, you've got these SEC teams that are going to have 4 wins in conference, maybe 5 wins in conference, and they're looking to be in on the right side of the bubble. It's frustrating. But yet again, you don't need to be in this conversation if, like you said, Chad, you take care of business in a couple of easy games that you should have taken care of business in. The K-State game was K-State was reeling. You got to just figure out a way to win that game.
Yeah.
And
you can't let Coleman Hawkins go for 20 or whatever it was in that game after
best
he
game
was
of the
struggling.
season. Yeah.
He was struggling to score 10 going into it. Yeah. Like little stuff like that. It's attention to detail in this league. Like that's, you know, we got to this point apparently where everybody just assumed going into the Big 12, like, okay, 1 season through, we should have it all figured out by then. The only team that's done that is Houston, and they had a machine built before they came into the Big 12.
BYU figured it out.
What's UC's record against BYU? 2-1?
Well, but they figured out the Big 12. Maybe they haven't figured out us.
They figured out this year that if you go buy Agor Demon and you build a decent team around an NBA lottery pick, that you could. I mean, but if you look at BYU, they're good at home. And they've held serve at home. They haven't been very good away from home.
Yeah.
And they're a team that's generally the MO for teams that rely on the 3-point shot, right? They're really good at home because it's comfortable. It's your home surroundings.
Right.
You shoot better at home than you do on the road, unless you're Cincinnati for the first half of Big 12 play.
Yeah.
But then they go on the road and the offense kind of stagnates a little bit and they struggle to get wins on the road because the 3-point shooting isn't there. But
We'll take that win.
BYU wasn't in a like they were in a different situation. Like their financials were not that of a team playing in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah.
I know they were in a different conference. Their football was independent, but like their basketball program was built on a lot sturdier foundation coming into the Big 12 than what Cincinnati was on their third coach in 4 years or 5 years, whatever it was. Yeah. And basically having to start over when West took over for Brandon.
Yeah,
that's not a stable foundation.
City's best painter didn't do us a favor. That's for damn sure. As of right now, obviously, if everything's chalk, all the favorites win the rest of the way in the Big 12. Because obviously next week we're going to be talking about this tournament that we got to go face. Cincinnati will finish as the 10th seed. They'll play Arizona State in the first round, get West Virginia in the rubber match. Well, not really the rubber match. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year match. In round 2, then they would face Texas Tech. They're in the quarterfinals on Thursday, March 13th. So
that's if they're the 12.
That's if they're the 10 seed.
The 10. So if everything breaks exactly right and they get the 10.
Yeah. Well, no, if just all the favorites win.
If everything breaks exactly right.
Oh, well, if everything breaks exactly right, we win, and then all the teams we need to lose. This is just, if the.
I mean, in terms of standings for the Big 12 tournament, Brent, if everything breaks in Cincinnati's favor and the favorites win, Cincinnati can move up to 10.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
I didn't even know what we were arguing about there.
I do have one last thing to add. Simas Lukosius. Yeah, now he obviously had the injury against Iowa State, so I'm going to add that one in there because last year the whole hit by a car thing happened and something happened. Well, in the Iowa State game and then the Baylor game and the Houston game, Simas has made 2 or more threes in each game, and he's shooting 38% from 3. He's made 8 of 21 shots from beyond the arc. He's only shot 22 shots, so he's shot only 1 shot inside the arc. So maybe just maybe Simas can continue to just find that 3-point touch and be the ability to stretch the defense, whether it be off the bench, whether it be in any scenario he is needed. Also worth noting, he did log 30 minutes in the game at Houston. So a lot of that was foul trouble reasons and different rotations. But
yeah, a lot of that was Dylan kind of battling, walking that line, especially in the first half with 2 quick ones.
That's just so damn frustrating. I mean, DayDay was getting ready to pop off for 30. But
yeah,
I guess he'll just have to save it for K-State. Anything more on basketball, guys? Obviously, big matchup on Wednesday. Coleman Hawkins hasn't played the past few games. Chad, you and Aaron do a good job kind of recapping the whole entire wrap up in the Big 12. I mean, K-State obviously went on that crazy run.
There was an interesting quote from Jerome Tang today. Let me see if I can find it real quick to get it absolutely right. But basically said he's been doing everything he can, rehabbing 24/7 to make it back at some point in time this season.
Right.
That did not sound like a guy that was ready to come back Wednesday night.
They're 14-15. Coleman Hawkins wants to play in the NBA. If you're listening, Coleman, go ahead and take the rest of the year off, man. Get ready for the combine. There's no reason for you to strap it up. You'll be all right. But yeah, obviously they in that first matchup, golly, can you believe how long ago that was, Ryan? That was last year when that happened. That first matchup.
I knew you were due for a cornball joke. There you go.
Golly, we were all a year younger back then.
Man, time's flying.
Time is damn flying. But yeah, they went on that crazy 6-game winning streak. Then they lost 4 in a row, and then they got a gimme game at home against Colorado. Golly, it's time for Cincinnati. Just shut them up. So yeah, it'll be a good test for Kansas State.
You know what? Actually, Leroy, I kind of disagree there. I think Coleman Hawkins is an ideal like 10th guy on the bench in the NBA. He can rebound, he can pass, he's got some skill. You can run offense through him. Not much of a scoring threat, so I don't think he's ever like a starter level NBA player. But I could see him as a bench guy in the NBA for a long time, just because he does all the other stuff and doesn't require the ball a whole lot to do it. Good positional size, can handle the ball, helps you out as like a facilitator. I could actually see him being one of those guys. All of a sudden you're like, that guy's still like, that the blockbuster trade happens and it's like, so-and-so is being traded for so-and-so and Coleman Hawkins is in the deal. And you're like, guy that went to K-State?
And cash considerations.
He's still in the NBA?
Whoa, wait, the guy that was at Illinois back when they lost to Cincinnati in that little tip-off premier game in Wes Miller's first year?
He'll have some swag to be the Lakers' 10th man.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
Oh.
Let's figure out a way to win, man. Because this is time. Win 2 in a row, you get 2 in KC, which are definitely doable. You're talking about piling up more quad 2 wins, potentially a quad 1 win there in KC in that second round if you face the right team because it's a neutral court. So, hey, they're right there. Let's go.
What's quad 2 on the road?
It is, I believe it's up to 50. I believe neutral.
No.
Road is 75
for quad 1, right?
Oh, for quad 1, quad 2 is like 135.
Okay, so Oklahoma State would be a quad 2 road victory, so they can pick up 2 quad 2s.
Yeah,
I just didn't know if it was 100 or if it was past 100.
So quad 1 away is 1 to 75. Quad 2 away is 76 to 135.
Okay, so Oklahoma State would be a quad 2, so they can pick up 2 more quad 2 victories. Would that get them over 500 and 1 and 2? That's usually kind of an important metric.
Yeah, they're 9-2, 1-10, 1-9. So yeah, that'd be 11 and they'd be right there. They'd be like 11 and 12 around there. Damn. We'll see. A lot of that's the thing. So much can happen because they're 1-10 quad 1 and 9-2 in quad 2. So they'd be 11-2 in quad 2, 1-10 in quad 1, depending on if any of those flip flops. So yeah, you'd be right there at 11 and I mean Aaron's our mathematician. 12. You'd be 12 and 12. You'd be 500 going into the Big 12 tournament.
And then you'd have a chance in the first round probably to get a quad 1 or quad 2 neutral.
Yeah. Potentially a quad 1 neutral if you face the right team in the second round. So
no, I'm talking about the first round.
Oh yeah. Yeah. First round would be a few players out of state. It'll be a quad 2, yeah. So let's go. Drop the ball. Let's go. The ball is tipped. There you are. Let's go. All right. Let's timestamp.
This timestamp brought to you by Quick Paper Supply, your local and family-owned restaurant supply company for all your non-food products. They service over 150 restaurants with weekly low minimum next day deliveries, providing a wide range of food service products from to-go containers, cups, custom printed products, eco-friendly, and much more. They also have cleaning and restroom supplies for all your janitorial needs. Call Nick 513-470-2029 and reference Bearcats for 20% off your first month of purchases. Before I get into New Riff, would just like to say, if you're interested in joining the Bearcat Journal family, we do have some sponsorship openings. This is we're getting to that point where like everything kind of runs through April. And then April hits and we start planning for like the next school year and getting sponsors in, getting things set, and then rolling into the summer. So if you're interested, the mailbag could use the timestamp or a sponsor. So you're interested in sponsoring the mailbag or something on the BCJ pod. We do have some openings. So my DMs are always open, either on Twitter, X. You can hit me up on the message board. Plenty of different and secure your spot all the way through football and basketball seasons for 2025 and 2026 with a couple limited spots open right now. So there you go.
Boom, baby. Boom. As I get excited for my favorite time of every week.
Yeah, New Riffin' with Royer. New Riff, fiercely independent and unabashedly innovative. New Riff produces award-winning bourbon, rye whiskey, and gin at their distillery in Newport, Kentucky. The Aquafire Tasting Room, located on the 3rd floor of the distillery, features cocktails, flights, and pours of New Riff's entire line of spirits, including rare, limited edition, and distillery-exclusive releases. Bearcat Journal listeners can save 50% on distillery tours when you use the code Bearcats24. For information or to book a tour, visit newriffdistilling.com.
Ryan can't pull Ryan Cook. He can't pull, these athletes that he once played with. But what he can do? He can take a pull with that New Riff, man. The other day, him and I were on FaceTime, and he took a big old pull with New Riff. He said, I'm excited for our segment coming up on Monday. So take it away, Ryan.
You know me, Brent. All right, you kind of teased at a CMOS, a little bit of life being tapped into him over the last 3, kind of segued into my first question. CMOS Lukosius, over under 11.5 points on Wednesday.
Under.
I'll take the over. I think he's finding his groove. And I just think that the rise of Jizzle and the rise of DayDay, I think he's going to continue to space out for CMOS. And he's not afraid to shoot right now. He was hesitating for a little bit. Now he's just firing it up there. So I'll take the over.
I'll take the under barely. I think he gets to 11. I think he gets 3 threes and 2 free throws late in the game to help ice it away, and he ends up with 11.
Chad, are you in the camp where you ride with Josh in the starting 5?
Yeah.
The rest of the way?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, CMOS.
He's earned it.
Yeah. CMOS still got 30 minutes. Obviously, we mentioned why,
right.
But
yeah,
those things kind of work themselves out. So I like it. Roy, are you taking over?
I'm taking him at 13 points.
Okay.
I like the 3 threes and 4 free throws. So he's going to get fouled one more time, Chad. All right.
I like it.
Okay. So right now we got 7 possible games left in the season. Pending the Bearcats win their final 2 of the regular season. What do you think their magic number is sitting at? How many wins out of the potential final 7 games would get us a bid into the big dance?
Well, if you win all 7, then you're in.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I forgot to add that asterisk in there.
5?
Yeah,
5 would get you into the semis of the Big 12 tournament, and then a loss in the semis, you would presume.
Yeah, I think I'd go with 5 being you're feeling pretty good, because that means you'll get a quad 1, win added in that neutral game in the 3rd round. But I think 4, you're going into Sunday and you're thinking, hey, I just watched, Oklahoma lose 3 straight to close out. I just watched Texas lose 3 straight. Ohio State's, lost 3 of their last 5 games. You start adding up all these different things, and you're literally going in thinking, hey, when I compare my resume to that team up in Norwood, and it's pretty much the exact same, except for our numbers are a little better in some certain metrics. So I think 4, you're going in and you are like locked into the TV. 5, I think you're feeling kind of good, and I think that you're in a lot of brackets on the right side of the bubble.
So much of it is going to be determined by what they do with the SEC. That really is the litmus test for where all of this is heading. Because if you're seeing 6 and 12 get in the SEC, like, it ain't good for everybody else. Let's just leave it like that.
Chad, they're even in head-to-head, though. They should really think about that in the selection committee.
They are even in head-to-head. They should probably talk about that. Go ahead, Brent.
I swear, if more than 2 teams get in from the ACC, I will be ready to fight, because
they're gonna get fought. At least 4.
Whoa, 4? Who's? I understand 3.
3 are a lock. 3 are a lock.
Who are the 3 locks? Duke and Clemson,
and Louisville.
Oh, and Louisville. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Forgot about Louisville. Okay. 4. If they get 4 teams in, I will throw a fit. There you go. 4 teams. Because Wake Forest is a bubble team. They just lost by 33. Yes, Duke is amazing, but 33. They aren't helping themselves out. SMU just lost at Stanford. They aren't helping themselves
SMU
out.
stinks. I don't understand SMU on the bubble at all.
They're horrible.
They don't have high quality wins. Like, their metrics are. I don't understand SMU being in this conversation at all. Absolutely.
Thank you. And then so it all boils down to North Carolina, who had a very hard non-conference schedule. They didn't beat anybody. They played a lot of tough teams. They didn't win them.
Right.
They host Duke this weekend. I don't know.
They're going to get smacked.
Right. I hate it. But yeah, it will all boil down to the SEC. But luckily the SEC, and maybe it doesn't even matter, but they're all like going to start just beating each other up. Like, Georgia's kind of considered in. What do they lose at South Carolina tomorrow?
Right.
Texas is still on the bubble, 16-13, 5-11 in conference. They have to play at Mississippi State tomorrow. Arkansas has to play at Vanderbilt tomorrow. Arkansas is considered in. If they lose at Vanderbilt, 17-13. It's just so weird.
There's a very real path. If Texas loses out, that's 16-16. You're gonna put a 500 team in at large because they played in the SEC,
right?
Like, what are we doing?
Same thing with Oklahoma. They've got a great non-conference. They were phenomenal in the non-conference, but they could easily lose at home against Missouri on Wednesday and then at Texas on Saturday. And then all of a sudden,
Oklahoma's won 3 games in 2025.
Right. And then they're going to literally be 4-14 in SEC play, but because they played well out of conference, you're going to slide them into the tournament. I don't know. It's just, it will be fascinating to see what they do with the SEC. But
4 wins, you have to win 4 in a row. Where UC is at. Like, I think that is the absolute minimum. If you lose any of those 4 games, you're out.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way around that. There's no path to 3-1 being enough. Agreed. So you've got to win 4 games. The 5th game creates the fear that I always have with the tournament. And, this is, I think it was Andy Katz that said this a couple years back, and it has stuck with me. And I talk about it every year because UC's kind of been in and around the bubble most years, is that the committee gets together on Tuesday. They do like a dinner Tuesday night, and they get started, and basically they scrub like that first group of like, these teams are a lock. And then they spend most of Wednesday, if not all of Wednesday, deciding on the rest of the at-large teams. And that will occasionally, and I think this year could be one of those years because everything is razor thin on the bubble. Like they are going to have from those first 4 teams out to they're the first 4 teams in to the first 4 out to the next 4 out. Those 12 teams, it's splitting hairs at this point. We'll see what happens over the next, 10 days or 14 days or whatever, 10 days to get to that point. But I just don't think they go back. I really don't. I think once they have that set, there might be a contingency plan or two. But I think once they get to Thursday morning, they are pretty locked in that this is our field. I don't think you see a lot of Thursday night. They go, okay, well, these resumes changed. Let's go back over those 12 teams and see if we feel differently. I don't think Friday they do that. So I think the hay has to be in the barn by Thursday morning for the most part. And that means, will it be enough to get to the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament? I don't think so at this point. After I see what all happens, maybe I will have a different opinion. But I think they're probably right in that upper group of next 4 out. I don't think they're in the first 4 out. I think they're probably that 1 or 2 team in the next 4 out. It means you got to jump 5, 6, 7 teams to get into the field and not have anybody come from behind you, not have any bid stealers. Like I think it's just they've put them they're one extra win. One extra win. If they could have gotten to 10-10 in this league, they would have been in. But I think they're going to finish at 9-11, and they're going to end up looking at Kansas State, Utah, both West Virginia games. They're going to like that. That is going to haunt them through the entire offseason that they couldn't go 1-3 in those games instead of 0-4. That gets you to 10-10. That magic. We are 500 in a great conference. We belong in the field. I think they're probably, if they take care of business, I still think they're going to end up 1 short.
It is crazy. Because they're in the Big Ten, you got Indiana, Nebraska, and Ohio State are the 3 teams that are kind of right there on that, in first 4 out, next 4 out little thing. And all 3 of those teams play against each other in a kind of a little bit of a round robin way, with Ohio State playing both. And then obviously Nebraska has a road game a home game against Iowa this weekend, and then Indiana's at Oregon tomorrow. So there's just so many different scenarios where you see, okay, if this team stacks up a couple losses, if that team stacks up a couple losses, you just got to win. We really just have to win.
Win and see how it goes. And if Ryan gets his way, win a little convincingly in both of these games. Show them that you're playing well.
Because you know what that does? Helps the metrics.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, they lost to Houston and jumped 7 spots in the metrics.
Yeah.
Some of that was also because a lot of the teams that they beat had big wins.
Right.
So it vaulted the metrics up. It's not just as simple as UC outperformed the metrics at Houston.
Yeah.
So they made this big jump. They got a little bit of help with that, but that's how weird the metrics are. You lose by 9 and you jump 7 spots. To mention that team across town, I hate doing that, but Xavier beats Creighton and doesn't move.
Right.
By 22 at home, and their metrics don't move.
Is this if it comes down to that final team and it's that team from Norwood? You got to look at the, versus the head-to-head matchup, right? I mean,
they say they do, but the problem with that, Brent, is it was a close game at home.
Yeah.
So they're going to factor in that you were playing at home, and they're probably going to look at it and go, yeah, these 2 teams are pretty much even. Razor thin. Because that Creighton win essentially was BYU and Baylor. It's BYU and Baylor are higher in the metrics than Creighton. So Cincinnati got that win twice, and it didn't create much of a lift.
Yeah.
And they went through the same thing Xavier did, where they got that win at home, and BYU was convincing, like X was over Creighton, and they didn't really move.
Right.
So 30 games in, a bunch of movement is not it's probably not going to happen. You're just not going to see a team make a substantial jump up or a substantial jump down at this point in the season. So that's my, you look at Kansas State and Oklahoma State, they could win both of those games, and KenPom has them 6-point favorite against Kansas State and a 3-point favorite against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So, if you beat them by 15, both, maybe that helps you a little bit, but ultimately you're just boosting a strength that was already a strength, your quad 2 metrics, and not really getting a chance to do a whole lot against quad 1.
Yeah.
One quad 1 win.
I agree. All right, Royer.
All right. We mentioned spring ball is only a week away. What is the best thing you could see out of spring ball that can kind of distract us from the woes and uncertainty of this past this past month from the basketball team? What's something that might get you out of your seat a little bit? A certain position group that you see perform, better than expected, or just overall offense or defense, something along those lines?
Offensively, for me, it's a 30-yard pass. That would get me up out of my seat. I haven't seen one of those in months. Defensively, an interception. Because, again, I feel like I'm right there with haven't seen one of those in months. So
not too many on Sorsby, though. We don't want to see much of that. We want him to look nice and good.
Yeah, just let Lichty throw all the INTs. Lichty will take that for the team. He'll take one.
He's
NIL deal?
No, Lichty's still here.
Oh, I thought he was done.
Damn, Chad.
I mean, these guys get like 6 years in college now, Ryan. My bad to Lichty. I
thought you meant he transferred.
No, I would have known if he transferred.
That's what I was saying.
My brain thought that he had been here for like I thought he was here when you guys went to Memphis for the AAC championship game, which feels like 100 years ago.
I think he was a freshman in my last year.
He was.
I know. I'm exaggerating or two, but just feels like he's been here a while.
Fact is, he has.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Chad, what do you want to see? Spring ball.
It's hard for me because all I'm going to be doing for the first week is learning numbers.
Yeah.
And then they leave for spring break for a week, and then they come back, and I'm going to have to do it again. I want to see how things play out in the secondary. There's a lot of bodies who kind of elevates that cream to the top in the secondary groups, because there's a lot of openings. There's a lot of spots that are kind of in flux. You lost 2 outside safeties. You lost your number 1 corner. You brought multiple guys in that are versatile enough to be rotated around through these different positions. It's going to be hell because they're going to be back in the pod system. So I'm not going to be able to just like immediately be like, okay, these are the 1s and these are the 2s. It's going to take a very trained eye to kind of sift through it. And I don't really have that. So I'm going to do my best and talk to as many people as possible to see how that's shaking out, because I think not only are there guys in the transfer portal that came in that are going to be able to help at those positions, but there's also a couple of those freshmen that saw time last year that, you're going to be interested to see how does that translate into year 2. Looking at you, Gravy. Looking at you, Jaquan Sank. Quavo. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that let's see what you got. Now is the prove it time. Get out there and let's make some plays and see how you hold up. That's going to be fascinating to me in that defensive secondary, because I think at wide receiver we have a pretty good idea of who those guys are going to be that they're going to turn to. At least like who's going to get the heavy looks early in the secondary. I think it could go a bunch of different ways. And then offensive tackle, like, is it going to be to a point that they're like, okay, we feel pretty good? Or is it going to be, man, we really need to go get a starter in the spring portal based on what we learned? I think they're still going to be good on the inside. I think Tengastal is going to be good. Gavin obviously is a mainstay. Though, whether it be DeAndre Buford at guard, you might have to keep him at tackle just because of the uncertainty around some of the other stuff. But those interior offensive line, tackle, and then secondary are going to be the things I'm keeping a close eye on.
Well, yeah, pretty much took them all. But
I took two.
Well, secondary,
one on each side of the ball.
The offensive line. Let's see here, because the running game isn't really going to be shown much in the spring ball. So, I was actually interested because shouts to the boys on that offensive line going and showing out in the combine this past weekend. Number one in most bench reps and among all offensive linemen. And then, of course, number 3 as well. That's right, Luke Kandra and John Williams. So shout out to the boys. So I'm excited to see what Nick Carbo's got up his sleeve with these new guys coming in. If the fellas go in and if Chad writes up on his recaps, hey, we got a solid little 5 working. We got 4 looking great and a 5th kind of surprising. Xavier Lozowick going to take that next step. That Noah Latalupe, is he ready? You got Tayo. Is he going to step in and fire it up? So I'm excited to hear about that O-line and then see that interview with Nick Cardwell and Chad and Keegan chop it up with one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire world. And then, of course, I'm excited to see Nico Pelizzetti get the boys more and more prepared every day. That'll get me fired up. Ryan, what about you? What gets you fired up, bud?
For me, it's just going to be if the wide receiver room kind of steps up, get some separation, intermediate to deep route connections with Sorsby. I also like Chad's point on the secondary. It's going to be a lot of depth, and I'm hoping that, towards that, back quarter end of spring ball, that last week where it's, good on good, it's a lot more kind of like game evaluation type of stuff, that we got a good kind of, what do we got? A good 7 guys that are all 7 that are in there. They're all contributing. They're all, showing a lot of improvement and able to kind of take a little bit of development in the defense, manipulate the looks, be able to show some more, maybe some exotic pressures from the secondary or a different, maybe some more man-on-man coverage on the outside where the guys are kind of evolving and we can, manipulate some of our linebacker drops and, have safeties be able to do different coverages, give Sorsby a little bit more different looks to kind of see give him a better chance of development and seeing different things. And I think that'll be big. Get some good consistent play from our receivers and our secondary and kind of show development in both the offense and the defense, getting new schemes out there and, letting Satterfield and Vite open up the playbook with that.
It's the greatest thing about sports. There's always another off season. How wild is that? Just like that, spring ball's here. Nuts. Good question, Ryan. You got one more?
There was that one. I know you always like to segue it, but I think you do a great job of setting it up.
Okay. Well, this one happened last night when you and I were texting. We were both wearing our tuxes and we watched the entire Oscars on FaceTime together. So that was fun. Remember you were telling me, Honora winning Best Picture. You said it reminded you of your pre-girlfriend days where, kind of as a young wild gun, young stud out there, trying to find true love. Great movie. Haven't seen it yet. Heard it's awesome. Gonna be watching it soon.
Great movie. Haven't seen it yet.
But so then you started to say, hey, if you were to take home any award, whether it be sports, whether it be Grammys, whether it be Oscars, whether it be anything, award, Super Bowl ring, national championship. What would it be, Brent? And I said, oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. One that I think we should pose on the BBP tomorrow. And now we're here. So you want to go ahead and ask that question, Ryan?
I think you just asked it, so.
Okay.
What did he ask? I have no clue. Where are we going here?
What award would you choose to win if you could pick any award?
Any award in the world. And why? Have a little fun with it, damn it. Drew, you're my cousin. Don't be mean. Jesus. Take it away, Chad.
I Kentucky Sportscaster of the Year, even though I talk about Ohio sports and not Kentucky sports. I don't know.
Okay.
Be recognized for doing something that I do instead of something that I don't do.
I mean, this is La La Land, but sure. Okay. Fair enough.
How about you, Brent?
I'll go last. Aaron.
Okay.
What you got?
Give me the Bengals Lombardi Trophy. That's what I want.
Okay.
Never been done.
I'm going with National Coach of the Year after coaching the Cincinnati Bearcats football team to its first ever national championship college football playoff run.
Wow.
You better get into coaching.
Yeah, I'm not saying how soon this is going to happen. It's on the back burner right now.
I mean, we see a bunch of these stories though, like, this guy was a math teacher. This guy, this guy was an engineer. What was the Gulf Coast, the Florida Gulf Coast guy? Wasn't he like an investment banker? Enfield, wasn't he like an investment banker or something?
Yeah, and then he then he started coaching. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think you can do it, Ryan. You got to get that in.
I know.
Mark Pope I think he was on his way to being a doctor. Like he was completing the steps to be a doctor.
Nate Oates was a math teacher.
Yeah. High school basketball coach, a math teacher.
Yeah. Aaron was a mathematician.
Sure wasn't.
Yeah.
Nope.
Aaron sold cell phones. Now he's hoisting a Super Bowl trophy.
Ooh, I like that. So no one wants to be the Heisman? No one wants to win an Oscar for Best Actor? What about a Grammy for
not an actor
for Best Song of the Year? Come on now. There's this thing that People Magazine does every year that I am way far, probably never going to do it, but Sexiest Man Alive wouldn't be too bad. I mean, that would be a pretty cool award to have.
I mean, I'm friends with the guy that almost won it. Does that count?
Yeah, true. It's a good point.
Sure does.
Maybe he gets us an in, and then they're like, wow, let's watch this BBP for 10 minutes. And as Drew Young says, gosh, that one guy that just keeps talking, he might be in the running. That'd be a fun one to win.
Yes, Best Cat. We did discuss UC basketball for over an hour at the beginning.
Hour
of the
15.
Show.
Yeah.
Check it out. It was beautiful.
Huge. Check it out.
Check it out. All right. Well, there we go. Let's timestamp. Ryan, gosh, man, you're a legend, dude. I want you to be a coach.
Can't do it without you, bro. Come on.
I know.
You're the biggest hype man.
I love holding your hand and you hold mine.
Quick Paper Supply, your local and family-owned restaurant supply company for all your non-food products. They provide mostly disposable restaurant supplies, to-go containers, cups, pizza boxes, to-go bags, can liners, napkins. They've been open since 2009 and are one of the largest minority-owned companies in the city. Call Nick 513-470-2029 and reference Bearcats for 20% off your first month of purchases.
Boom. Well, before we hop in this mailbag, just real fast, we already mentioned the combine results. Good showing for the Bearcats. A pretty solid 40 time for Corey Kiner, 4.58. Aaron and Chad and everyone talking about his hand size. Ryan, hand size. Can you think of a crazier thing that people talk about than damn hand size? Second smallest hands in combine history. Doesn't fumble much, so there's probably much to do about nothing there. But hand size docked Corey, I guess. But I don't know. Pretty solid showing by the Bearcats overall at the combine, and a commit just recently as breaking news while we were going on air. Dadrian Waller verbally commits to the Bearcats. 6'5" wide receiver. Put up some gaudy stats there. So keep on building up that 2026 class.
Yes. All right, let's hop in this mailbag and get out of here. Starting with the football portion of the mailbag. If Rich Rod return at West Virginia was a stock, would you buy, sell, or hold? Personally, I want nothing to do with West Virginia. I would not do any of it. I would never buy. Sell that shit down the river.
Sell.
There's just not a lot of instances of guys running it back and having success. Like I think I would sell him, and I think I would sell UCF because it just doesn't happen much where they recreate the magic. More often than not, it fails miserably. So I'll go with sell.
I'm buying his before UCF, just because that fan base loved Rich Rod and the glory days that were. Yeah. So if you get a handful of rich boosters that are like, oh, Rich Rod's back, let's start giving our money again to the program, then.
I know Pat White it's coming back to coach, right? Isn't that happening? Or
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Is he going to play? Because if Pat White and Steve Slayton play, Noel Devine,
wow,
Owen Schmitz, Pat McAfee, like
Pat,
Pac-Man Jones.
I didn't even think of that. Pat McAfee's about to give some fatty checks and hit up all of his buddies. See what they can do.
If that was the case, then I'm all in. But
yeah,
that was a pretty special era in West Virginia football because they took some unheralded dudes that turned out to be incredible. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be hard to duplicate.
All right. And the last question in the football portion of the mailbag. Have there been any developments or updates regarding the open special teams coordinator position? I see we have an assistant coach on the football staff website, or are they waiting for the conclusion of the upcoming UFL football season to name someone currently on staff somewhere else? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen. We had this answer from a guest.
Yeah. I don't know that they're going to name a special teams coordinator. I really don't. I don't think you have to. Said. Yeah, I don't think you have to. I don't think they're going to. I think it's going to be a culmination of people with their with different responsibilities scattered across special teams, as opposed to one person kind of being in charge of it.
Yeah, that's what Coach said when he was on with us.
Yeah, and Vite kind of said the same thing.
And that's because everyone's allowed to coach now. So
yeah, like that's the thing is the structure doesn't have to be what it used to be, where your 10 assistant coaches were the only coaches that could be on the field during a practice coaching. Now you can have as many as you want. So I don't think there needs to be that.
And that is the football portion of the mailbag. Moving on to the basketball portion. David DeJulius, senior season versus Jizzle's sophomore season. Landers Nolly's last season versus Seamoss's junior season. Pick your winners.
Probably DeJulius because he didn't take a month off. And Landers because he was one of the best three-point shooters in program history in his senior season or his last season. I guess his junior season, whatever. Landers shot the piss out of it that year with not a lot of help outside of DeJulius. So I'll go with Dave and with Landers.
I agree.
I love those answers.
Gosh, Landers was great.
What's your answer, Brent?
Landers. And I mean, it sucks that I mean, Landers is the given, but it sucks that we're going to say we're taking David DeJulius over the best player on a team that we're hoping he's the reason that propels them to the tournament. But
he had a bad month. Like, he didn't do anything for a month.
Well, Dave and Landers didn't do anything for a whole year to garner any tournament, talk. So I'll go Jizzle sophomore year, Landers here, and then I'll take Dave over everyone else.
All right, over under on 4.5 number of wins needed to make the tourney. We discussed that at length. So moving on, what is the ceiling on our seed if we won 7 straight, including the Big 12 championship and finished 24-12? That would include going 9-1 in the last 10.
A 1 seed. There'll be a 1 seed.
Maybe a
1 seed. Yeah, no, a 1. They'll be right there with Duke, Houston, Auburn, and Cincinnati. Those will be
things
the
that'll never happen for 1,000, Alex.
That's how I like it, Trebek.
That's the sound your mother made last night.
I'll take the tits. 200.
Well, now that we're on it, Shane Gillis was hilarious on Saturday Night Live, by the way.
Couple of beers.
That is
I need a prescription.
Unbelievable. That one was unbelievable. Couple of beers.
How much more will it cost to keep DayDay as his season progressed?
I have no idea. I genuinely I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what the value on it would be.
For what it's worth.
I just don't.
It went up a little more. I don't know.
I mean, for what it's worth, Wes was starting to talk about having some optimism that will be able to come back. So
he can come back.
Right. No, I know. I mean, obviously the whatever thing needs to pass through, which all odds are pointing to that being the case. I mean, shoot, him and Tillery would be pretty damn phenomenal. And which shouts to Sean Abayev. Congrats on the state championship, and then immediately having to go play in an OTE game the next day. That's wild. That is a wild schedule that he's currently on.
And he's got to play like 4 days in a row at OTE if they continue winning, I think.
And then he's got the McDonald's All-American game right around the corner.
Yeah.
All that dude does is hoop. And Tillery threw down a monster dunk that I was able to watch after the sadness of Houston was finally going away. So excitement there.
All right. If NIL existed in the past, would UC have been able to afford the 2017-18 basketball roster? What about the 99-2000 team?
That would have been interesting with the 17-18 roster because you had an NBA guy in Jake and a fringe NBA guy in Gary. Those are both top 100 guys. So that's gonna in terms of what the cost is right now. Mm-hmm. Those are both roughly $1 million guys.
Promising sophomore who closed out his freshman year strong.
Jaron would have got a pretty good chunk of money. Kyle would not have been here for cheap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think they would have been able to afford it all. I think there probably would have been one cap casualty. I think they probably could have afforded all but one. But one guy probably would have been expendable. Who that guy is, I don't know. And how good would that team have been without that entire starting unit kind of melding together? That would have been interesting. 99-2000 team, no fucking chance.
I mean, they definitely would have been able to afford Trevor Moore in that whole mix as well. You know, the greatest shooter.
99-2000. You got Kenyon, number 1 pick in the draft. DeMar, number 6 pick in the draft. Those guys are getting $1.5 million to $2 million.
Steve Logan.
Kenny Satterfield would have got a big
Satterfield.
bag. Pete Michael was an elite college player. He would have got a bag.
Logan.
No. Yeah, Logan. Yeah, Logan was young, so you might have been able to get him at least a little, like, not exactly like elite money because he was a younger guy, but he still would have been paid well. Yeah, no chance the 99-2000 team. Stokes was a freshman that year, though, right?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say those guys probably got paid. So I think that they probably would have been able to somehow find the money for them.
No.
They weren't here for free.
They weren't here for free. They weren't here for $2 million a year.
Well, $2 million back in 99-2000 was a little different than $2 million in 2025.
Okay, they weren't here for $1 million a year.
I don't think people were making $1 million back then either.
Because they weren't allowed to pay the players. They had to do it illegally.
People in the NBA weren't making crazy, like your second tier players weren't making crazy money like they are now either. Like, it's all relative. I'm just saying. That's a long time ago. That's 25 years ago. People were still buying decent homes for $150,000 back then.
Kenya Martin's rookie contract, 4 years, $6.1 million.
That's not a fair comp. That's number one pick in the draft.
Okay, but a lot of these guys are making far more in college right now than they would have made in the NBA.
Sure, but back then, what kids were making to play college ball, they were making money, and it still wasn't quite that. I think that
if NIL existed in the past,
would have been tempered,
would
and
they have been able to afford that team? No.
Disagree.
Okay. You're allowed to be wrong. It's fine.
Anyway.
That team was, the problem is that team had 7-8 guys that would have commanded a pretty large sum of money, even relative to the time period that they were in.
They did command large sums of money.
Not anywhere close to what is happening in scale now.
It's all relative, just saying.
No, it's not. You're not answering the question.
I am answering the question.
No, you're not.
Okay. Why do you guys think Wes has struggled so badly with roster construction over these 2 seasons? Minimal guard play both season. Too many centers last year. Too many power forwards this year. Concerning going into year 5 with a rebuild on the way.
I think part of it is injuries. You thought CJ was last year was going to give you a pretty big lift. He got hurt. Wasn't able to help you. Connor, you thought this year was going to give you a big lift. He got hurt. So, and then CJ, again, as even, a break glass in case of emergency, as the emergency guy, he hasn't been able to hold up. I think the biggest problem this year was Dan not taking that jump. And some of that, I think, is 100% on the staff because Dan is not a 2-guard. Dan is not a guy that, like, when you watch 2 guards in this league, he is not a guy that can play the 2 in the Big 12. I think if he hadn't lost his mind, he could have been a solid 3 in this league because you're not asking them to do as much facilitating and dribbling. But I think they've been unlucky at guard. I do agree that they overloaded too heavy on center the first year, which, like I said, you have to remember a lot of Wes doing this is from what he knew of high major basketball, which is at North Carolina. North Carolina still to this day is using 2 more traditional big men. And I think there was a mistake in that you looked at this league and thought that was going to be your path to reasonable success. I think it is much more of a guards league. And I think when you look at the type of power forwards he got, none of them match what works great in this league. JT Toppin, Norched Omier, Coleman Hawkins, trying to think. There's a couple others off the top of my head that would
Jefferson
fit in this.
at Iowa State.
Yeah, Jefferson at Iowa State. Juwan Roberts at Houston. It's funny, if you look at KenPom, all Big 12 all conference in KenPom, Hunter Dickinson, JT Toppin, Javon Small, Norchad Omier, and Juwan Roberts. 3 of those guys in that 6'8", 235, can rebound, can score. I think that's been the miscalculation, as they've gone for guys that don't fit that mold. They've danced around it by getting a bunch of 4s and 5s, but they've never really zeroed in on the type of 4 or 5 that you need to be really, really good in this league. And I think it's learning roster construction on the fly. You have preconceived notions of what you think is going to work, but then you try to use it in practice and hasn't clicked all the way in this league. It's been okay, but it hasn't been good enough to get out of that middle third. Like, they're just stuck in that middle third right now. And I think roster construction, learning from your mistakes, is what is going to be able to take them over the top. So we're going to get a chance here in a couple weeks to figure out, did they learn the lessons of the first 2 years in roster construction that need to be changed in order to get them over the hump next year?
And the last question of the basketball portion of the mailbag. Rick Pitino, Bill Self, Bruce Pearl, Kelvin Sampson, Dan Hurley, Izzo, all Bulldog coaches that will get into their players on the court during game if they make mistakes. How do you feel about Wes and his label as a player's coach? I just don't see enough fire out of him. Tired of hearing how pissed he is.
That's a you problem, because you listen to press conferences and take them emotionally, that last part. But there are also a ton of players coaches that have wild levels of success too. Bruce Pearl, more of a players coach. Nate Oates, more of a players coach. Like, there's no one specific way. This way works and that way doesn't, or else everybody would be that way. What did everybody say about Hugs and Mick? I wish they'd stop yelling at their guys. Why do they yank guys out of the game so fast? Nobody ever gets into a rhythm. Like all the things that now we're on the opposite side hearing about Wes, like, there's no answer that's cut down the middle on that to say this way works and that way doesn't. So it's whatever, maybe Cincinnati does need, because of the type of kid you have to recruit, because of the type of program you need to be successful. Maybe they do need a hard-nosed coach, but I don't think it's just as simple as guys that yell at their guys win and guys that don't yell at their guys lose.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much more that goes in the coach. Like, Matt Painter he's not a lay into his guys yell at him, but he's a phenomenal just X's and O's coach and finding the right fits to build his roster. Yes, all those guys listed get fired up and whatnot, but I mean, Rick Barnes has won a bunch, and he's not one that you see on the sideline barking at his players every single possession. So
yeah,
it's way different than just this and that. But I don't know. I see Wes at times as well. Yes, there's a lot of hand clapping and whatnot, but every coach has a method. Okay, at least win somehow, some way.
Well, there is no questions in the baseball portion of the mailbag, so we'll move on to the banks, where we have 3 this week.
Tough weekend for the baseball team real fast, They got to get the offense fired up again. Home opener tomorrow. Go ahead.
You get to choose a pickup game. Are you playing basketball, kickball, wiffle ball, or dodgeball?
Basketball.
I'm taking kickball, although the last time I played kickball, I went too hard and I broke my collarbone.
What?
So growing up,
kickball?
wiffle ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
Kickball can be dangerous.
To break a
growing up-
collarbone?
Yeah.
Look,
I mean, it's a dangerous sport.
The ground was hard. I dove.
Oh.
Shouldn't have done that.
Some drinks involved.
Nope. It was a work event.
Wow.
Did get workers comp.
Wow. Fair.
We were a wiffle ball group growing up. Like we built wiffle ball fields. We built one in one of my buddies. Like there was an empty lot in his backyard, and we built a wall, pitcher's mound, base paths, like wiffle ball field of dreams type stuff. Back before that became like the in vogue trendy thing to do. Back in like the early 90s. With limited resources, we would play wiffle ball in my grandma's backyard. I actually got in huge trouble. She told me to cut the grass one day in the summer, so I dropped the wheels on the lawnmower and cut out a base path in her backyard for wiffle ball. She was maybe as mad as I've ever seen my grandma when she got home from work that day. I still remember this vividly. I was like 10, 11 years old. Oh, I got ripped a new what coming home that day. So wiffle ball was a huge part. We also played a ton of basketball, but I'll go wiffle ball just because the memories from childhood of playing wiffle ball.
I'm with Ryan. Basketball. Something about it.
Who was your grandpa more like? Number 1, Ward Cleaver. Number 2, Al Bundy. Number 3, Archie Bunker.
Don't know any of those.
Yeah, me neither. Heard Al Bundy.
The only one I know is Al Bundy, and my grandfather, neither grandfather, was like Al Bundy.
Ward Cleaver was the dad on Leave It to Beaver. If you ever saw Leave It to Beaver. Al Bundy, obviously, Married with Children. Archie Bunker, All in the Family. Al Bundy drank the most out of that group, so I'll probably go Al Bundy. My grandpa enjoyed a good beer or 6. So I'll go Al Bundy.
Fair.
And the last question. Let's end the podcast with good vibes. Funniest moment you shared with your co-host.
Wow.
I don't know.
We don't hang out too much. We need to
only-
hang out more. Come on now.
We've only all been together, same place, same time, like twice, right?
Yeah.
Before the Miami game and at Kelly's funeral. Like I think that's the only time all 4 of us have been in the same place at the same time.
Need to fix.
Both of those events sucked. So maybe we haven't had fun ever together, Mark.
Maybe it was the podcast following the Miami game where we all laughed at how delusional we were.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I would say it's a funny moment every time it comes to that awkward question in the new Riffin' with Royer segment.
Man, I tell you what, I got a whole gang of those if we hang out outside of this pod, man.
Don't doubt that.
I don't know. There was that one time, Ryan, when you and I were like 5 a.m. that one day, you remember?
Oh, yeah.
We were remaking that movie. Honora, One Best Friend. Great movie. I had not seen it, but it's a great movie.
Were you both wearing cowboy hats?
Yes.
Nailed
How
it.
did you know that I wear
Nailed it.
a cowboy hat? Yeah. No, I had fun with Chad at the field trip to Fog Allen Fieldhouse. That was a fun weekend.
That was probably as fun. I mean, mainly because Bob was there.
Yeah, Bob was the man.
Making fun of Keegan, we do enjoy that. We all definitely enjoy making fun of Keegan.
I still can't believe what he did for Vegas. It just grinds every gear I have.
I did like the 1,000 hugs I had from Aaron the night of Kelly's memorial service. That was
You're welcome.
That was very enjoyable. You give good hugs, very good hugs. Yeah, I think we need to hang out more, guys. I'm sick of Ryan and I being the only ones that hang out with each other. I mean, his embraces are phenomenal, but I need more out of you guys as well. So
that's the mailbag. Get us out of here, Brent.
Guys, it's March. This is such an important time. It's about time the boys step up. Yeah, put up or shut up. Win 2 games, you get a chance. Win 2 games, you're still on the bubble. Win 2 games, champagne is still on ice. I need it. I need it for my life. I need it for my veins. Please, oh please. Hopefully the wind isn't too bad on Wednesday so I can make the trip for senior night. Chad's going to be an interesting senior night. Like, who's going to walk? This is one of the more stranger
I can tell you.
Let's hear it.
Can we tell you?
Yeah.
Both CJs, CJ Anthony and CJ Frederick, Connor
Ciao.
Hickman, Simas Lukosius, and Aziz Bandago will be walking for senior day.
Okay. There we go. So shouts to them. Integral parts in the program, in the bridge back to Terabithia, which is the height of all heights.
Terabithia.
The height of all heights. The NCAA tournament. So huge games. Two big games.
Oh my God. The bridge to Terabithia.
We have the massive baseball home opener tomorrow as well. Make sure you get out there for that one. So game on Wednesday. Kansas State. Woo! Take them down. Revenge tour. Continue it. So where are my guys? Shouts to Danco Transmission. Shouts to New Riff. Shouts to Quick Paper Supply. Shouts to my guys. To everyone. For Aaron Smith, for Chad Brendel, for Ryan Royer, my man, Ryan Royer. And I'm Brent Young. Yet again, guys, another fantastic BBP presented by BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!